If you are listening to this right now, it is not accidental. You were not meant to hear this earlier. Only now. Something in you has been quietly shifting over the past few days, like a door inside your chest unlocking without noise. And tomorrow it becomes undeniable. Tomorrow, the Moon and Chiron bring 3 major awakenings to your life. Not to everyone. Not to the distracted. Not to the loud. To you, the one who feels everything deeply but says very little about it. The one who thought the hardest part of growth was already behind them. The one who survived something that changed them permanently. This waxing crescent moon does not bring chaos. It brings realization. And realization can be more destabilizing than any storm because it forces you to see what has already ended. You may have told yourself you were still in recovery, still rebuilding, still bracing. But what if the survival chapter quietly closed months ago and your nervous system just hasn't caught up yet? Chiron's influence tomorrow is not reopening your wounds. It is illuminating how much they've already healed. That's the part no one warns you about. Healing doesn't always feel triumphant. Sometimes it feels like standing in an empty room after everyone has left, realizing the noise is gone, and you don't know what to do with the silence. You thought you were still fighting for stability. But look closely. You're not fighting anymore. You're standing. And this moon is going to show you that the storm you were preparing for, you already walked through it. The chapter you feared repeating, it ended quietly while you were busy surviving it. This is the second awakening. Not the dramatic one that shattered your old identity. The subtle one that reveals you're no longer that person. And tomorrow, something inside you will click. Not loudly. Not publicly. But permanently. You may feel it in a small moment. A reaction you don't have. A thought that doesn't spiral. A memory that no longer tightens your chest. And you'll pause. Because that's when you'll realize. The hardest part is behind you. This will make sense later. For now, just notice how calm feels unfamiliar and why that matters. The hardest part is behind you, but your body hasn't fully believed it yet. Tomorrow's moon doesn't bring a test. It brings clarity. And clarity can feel strangely disorienting when you've been bracing for impact for so long. You got used to scanning the room, reading tone shifts, preparing explanations, anticipating loss before it happened. But something is different now. You may have felt this recently in small, almost forgettable moments. A conversation that didn't drain you. A silence that didn't feel like rejection. A delay that didn't send your mind racing. You brushed it off, but it wasn't random. Chiron is not reopening old pain. It is revealing that the wound no longer controls you. That's the awakening. You're no longer fighting for stability. You already built it. Not in loud declarations. Not in dramatic exits. But in quiet decisions. Boundaries you kept. Reactions you restrained. Nights you sat alone and chose not to break your own standards just to feel less lonely. You thought you were barely holding it together. But you were building structure. The storm you were bracing for? You left it long ago. The chaos you feared returning? It doesn't recognize you anymore. And tomorrow, that realization may land softly, but it will land. You might catch yourself responding differently to something that used to trigger you. No internal argument. No rehearsed defense. Just calm. And that calm will feel unfamiliar. Almost suspicious. Because for so long, peace only came in short windows before the next disruption. So when stability lingers, you instinctively look for what's about to go wrong. But nothing is about to go wrong. This is the part no one talks about, the quiet realization that you survived what was meant to shape you. That the lesson wasn't there to destroy you. It was there to refine your discernment, your boundaries, your emotional depth. You're not in the middle of the battle anymore. You're standing on the other side of it. And tomorrow's energy gently pulls the curtain back so you can see that for yourself. The second awakening isn't loud. It's the moment you stop waiting for pain to return and realize it doesn't have access to you the way it used to. But that's only the beginning of what this alignment is about to show you. Healing does not always arrive with tears. Sometimes it arrives in silence. Tomorrow, under this Moon and Chiron alignment, you may notice something subtle, almost easy to miss. A situation that once would have pulled you into overthinking doesn't. A tone that once felt threatening feels neutral. A memory that used to sting passes through you like a cloud instead of a blade. That's healing. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. But undeniable. You may have expected growth to feel like fireworks. A breakthrough conversation. A powerful release. But real healing often shows up in changed behavior. In the absence of reaction. In the way you no longer chase closure from people who were never capable of giving it. You respond differently now. And you didn't force it. That's the part that will surprise you tomorrow. The shift has already happened. Your nervous system is recalibrating. The old triggers are losing their voltage. The emotional charge is draining from stories that once defined you. You may have felt this recently when someone tried to provoke you and you simply didn't engage. Or when you realized you no longer needed to explain yourself in exhausting detail just to feel understood. That's growth. And it didn't announce itself. There were no witnesses when you decided to stop abandoning your own needs. No applause when you stopped chasing reassurance. No recognition when you chose dignity over reaction. But the structure formed anyway, like a house built at night while the world was asleep. Tomorrow's energy doesn't create the healing. It reveals it. You might pause mid-thought and think, why doesn't this affect me the way it used to? And in that pause, something settles. You are no longer fighting old battles internally. You're not suppressing emotions. You're not numbing. You're simply no longer attached to what once controlled you. The proof of growth is subtle. But once you notice it, you can't unsee it. And when you realize how much has shifted quietly beneath the surface, you'll begin to understand what this second awakening is really about. Because healing was never the end goal. Stability was. And you're closer to it than you think. There is a kind of stability that doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't announce itself with certainty or confidence. It feels quiet, almost ordinary. And because it doesn't feel intense, you overlook it. But tomorrow, something inside you will recognize it. You are more grounded than you give yourself credit for. Look at how you make decisions now. There is less panic in them, less urgency to prove, less need to rush toward what feels familiar just because it once felt safe. You pause more. You assess. You listen to the subtle discomfort instead of overriding it. That's structure. You built it during the nights you thought you were failing. During the conversations where you chose silence instead of escalation. During the moments when walking away felt like weakness, but you did it anyway. You thought you were losing people. In reality, you were losing instability. Fear no longer dictates your direction the way it once did. You may still feel doubt. You may still question yourself. But fear is no longer steering the wheel. It sits in the back seat now. It speaks, but it doesn't decide. That is stability. And you didn't build it in a season of peace. You built it in uncertainty, in isolation, in moments where no one understood why you were changing. You may have felt this recently. That strange sense of standing in your own life instead of chasing it. Like you're no longer trying to convince the world to choose you. You're simply choosing yourself quietly. That's new. And tomorrow's alignment amplifies that realization. The moon highlights the emotional foundation you've created. Chiron reminds you why it had to be built this way. Not to harden you, but to steady you. There is solid ground beneath you now. Even if your mind still scans for cracks. Even if part of you is waiting for something to collapse. Nothing is collapsing. You're stabilizing. And when you truly see that, when you feel how different your inner world is from even 6 months ago, something shifts in your posture. In your tone. In the way you carry yourself through a room. You stop bracing. You start standing. And that shift changes how people see you. Which leads to the next awakening you didn't expect. Something else is sharpening now. It's subtle at first, like adjusting to dim light, and suddenly realizing you can see more than you thought. Conversations feel different. Pauses feel louder. Smiles reveal what words try to hide. Your discernment is heightening. You're not becoming suspicious. You're becoming clear. Tomorrow's alignment activates that quiet internal knowing you used to doubt. The one that whispered, something feels off, but you overrode it because you wanted harmony more than truth. Because you didn't want to seem difficult. Because you were tired of being misunderstood. But now you don't override it. You observe. You may have felt this recently when someone's energy shifted slightly, and instead of questioning yourself, you simply noted it. No spiral, no self-blame, just awareness. That's growth. Motives are easier to read now. Inconsistencies stand out. Hidden agendas lose their camouflage. And what's interesting is, you don't feel angry about it. You feel calm. That calm is power. Manipulation only works when you're unsure of yourself. When you need validation. When you're afraid to walk away. But you're not standing in that space anymore. You don't need to decode people obsessively. You see clearly. And clarity removes the emotional guessing game you used to play. The one where you replayed conversations at night. The one where you wondered if you were too sensitive or imagining things. You weren't. You were intuitive. You just didn't trust it yet. Now you do. You may notice tomorrow that certain dynamics feel transparent. Certain people feel predictable. Certain situations feel obvious before they unfold. And instead of reacting emotionally, you respond strategically. That is a major awakening. Because when you see clearly, you stop negotiating with what disrespects you. You stop over-explaining. You stop trying to win people over who already decided not to understand you. You interact from clarity now, not from emotional survival. And once you realize how much sharper your perception has become, you'll understand why some people suddenly feel uncomfortable around you. Not because you changed into someone cold, but because you stopped being easy to confuse. And that shift quietly prepares you for something even deeper. Before you step fully into that emotional independence, there is something else unfolding quietly. This isn't punishment energy. It's payoff energy. For a long time, it felt like your restraint went unnoticed. Like your patience was invisible. Like choosing integrity over impulse cost you more than it returned. You watched others cut corners. You watched people manipulate outcomes. You watched dishonesty move faster than truth. And you stayed steady anyway. Not because it was easy, because it was aligned. Tomorrow, the Moon and Chiron don't reward you with fireworks. They reveal the quiet karma already unfolding around you. Conversations feel smoother. Resistance feels lower. Doors that once felt sealed now open without force. You may notice respect where there used to be tension, ease where there used to be friction, and you'll almost question it. Why does this feel lighter? Because you're no longer swimming upstream against your own boundaries. The patience you practiced is stabilizing your environment. The standards you kept are filtering your connections. The silence you maintained instead of reacting emotionally, it protected your position more than you realized. This is what integrity does over time. It rearranges outcomes quietly. You're not waiting for your time anymore. You're stepping into it. And the most powerful part? It doesn't feel like revenge. It doesn't feel like proving anyone wrong. It feels neutral, balanced, mature. That's how you know it's real. You may even sense certain people treating you differently, more carefully, more respectfully. Not because you demanded it, but because your energy shifted first. You stopped overextending. You stopped over-explaining. You stopped chasing. And when you remove desperation from your frequency, what remains is dignity. That's the quiet karma reveal. Not dramatic justice, but alignment catching up with you. And once you feel that subtle shift, that sense of things finally flowing instead of forcing, you'll begin to understand why being misunderstood was never the real problem. It was preparing you for independence. Which brings us to the freedom you're about to feel in a way you never have before. There was a time when being misunderstood felt like danger. Like standing in a room where everyone was speaking, but no one was hearing you. So you adjusted, softened your tone, shortened your sentences, pretended certain things didn't matter as much as they did. Not because you were weak, because you wanted connection. You may have felt this when you rehearsed explanations in your head before saying them out loud. When you added disclaimers to your truth. When you shrank your reactions so no one would call you too much. Somewhere along the way, self-silencing became survival. But tomorrow's energy shifts something profound inside you. You realize that being misunderstood never meant you were wrong. It meant you were early, or deeper, or simply unwilling to perform a version of yourself that felt easier for others to digest. This awakening isn't about confrontation. It's about release. You no longer feel the same urgency to correct every misconception, to defend every choice, to make sure everyone sees your heart clearly. There's a new calm that replaces that need, a quiet confidence that says, those who understand will. And those who don't, no longer destabilize you. That's freedom. Emotional independence doesn't look loud. It looks like not over-explaining. It looks like letting silence sit without rushing to fill it. It looks like trusting that your alignment will filter the right people in and the misaligned ones out without you forcing it. You stop shrinking just to be accepted. You stop performing just to be liked. You stop translating yourself into something smaller. And something powerful happens when you do. Your presence stabilizes. There's less inner negotiation, less second-guessing after you speak, less replaying conversations at night wondering if you said too much or too little. You simply spoke, and you stand by it. That shift changes everything. Because when you are no longer afraid of being misunderstood, you become impossible to control through approval or rejection. And that is the kind of quiet strength that marks the end of an era. An era you are about to close without drama but with certainty. Not every ending arrives with noise. Some endings feel like walking through a familiar room and realizing it no longer belongs to you. Tomorrow, something closes. Not with conflict. Not with confrontation. But with clarity. You may wake up and feel slightly detached from something that once consumed you. A goal. A person. A version of yourself. And instead of panic, there will be space. That space is the invisible ending. For a long time, you carried emotional weight out of habit. You held on to roles you had already outgrown. You kept certain doors cracked open just in case. You reread old messages, replayed old dynamics, kept mental tabs on chapters that had quietly expired. But now the emotional charge is gone. It's like checking your phone and realizing there are no notifications left to answer. No unfinished arguments waiting. No energy pulling at you from behind. You're not avoiding it. You've completed it. This alignment marks a dignified internal conclusion. No dramatic goodbye. No need for closure conversations that reopen old loops. Just a quiet knowing. I don't live there anymore. And that realization brings steadiness. You stop carrying what no longer belongs to you. You stop revisiting doors that already closed. You stop identifying with a survival story that has already served its purpose. You don't feel urgency to announce your growth. You embody it. There is something powerful about endings that happen without chaos. They don't leave debris. They leave clarity. And clarity creates space for something stable to enter. That is what this Moon and Chiron moment truly brings you. Not a new wound. Not a new test. But a new baseline. Calmer. Stronger. Less reactive. More certain. You are not in the middle of becoming anymore. You are stabilizing into who you already became. And if you feel that quiet shift tomorrow, that sense of standing in your life instead of bracing against it, trust it. It is not temporary. It is the beginning of a steadier chapter. One you no longer have to survive. Only live. Tomorrow, under the Moon and Chiron, you will quietly realize how far you've already come. The storms you feared, the battles you braced for, the weight you carried, they are behind you. What remains is clarity, stability, and a subtle strength that cannot be shaken. Notice it. Honor it. Stand in it. And remember, this awakening was always meant for you. Not everyone will understand, but you don't need them to. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to reflect and share it with someone who feels the same quiet shift. And for more guidance through these cosmic awakenings, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the moments that were meant only for you.